This has been an idea that I came up with so long ago, and I spent so many years just talking myself out of it. How can you just pivot from being a designer to now entering, publishing and then product design? And so I spent a lot of time doubting myself and really convincing myself that it wasn't a great idea. So to finally be at this point where it's an actual thing. It feels really fulfilling and I'm very, very proud of it. And I'm also just enjoying the journey. This is the first business that I've ever run before where I can do it at a pace that works for me. I am growing this business, but at a pace that does not affect, the things that matter most to me. That's something that I'm extremely proud of. Hi, this is Makini Regal Martin, the founder of Zuri Rose, a children's lifestyle brand, and you are listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers. Before we get into the show, I want to make sure that you're signed up for our email community. Go to dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up for the road trip, a weekly newsletter. We're going to take a trip down memory lane and get motivation, wisdom, and inspiration from my life and the stories that I am sharing with you all. Go to dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up for the road trip and get that weekly newsletter. So, all right, welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive. Today, we're going to hear a story about how one woman pivoted, reinvented herself, her vision for her future with confidence, class, vision, and audacity. There are so many lessons in this episode for anyone who is unsure about starting something new and need some encouragement on starting again. And I specifically said starting again, not starting over, but starting again, because all that you've been through is preparing you for where you're going. And that's what you're going to learn from Makini Regal Martin. She is a published floral event and interior designer. Trinidadian-born and Brooklyn-bred, Makini always has possessed this natural gift for design. After graduating from Columbia University and honing in on a successful career in management consulting, Makini turned her keen eye for design and love of flowers into a blossoming business where she launched Makini Regal Designs in 2011. Her design work has been published by New York Magazine, Essence, Design Sponge, The Knot, Munaluchi Bride, Black Enterprises, and many others. But this is the part where the story gets really good. After the birth of her daughter, Zuri Rose, Makini was inspired to launch a children's lifestyle brand and write a children's book series. The Wonderful World of Zuri Rose, Flowers A to Z, is the first book of that series, and we're going to be talking to Makini all about how she was able to build the brand and the lessons that she has for any dream drivers, whether you are an entrepreneur building a brand, whether you're someone in corporate trying to just get ahead, the lessons that she shared on what it takes to really build a strong launch, partnerships, networking, and why you should pay attention to details in your branding, however you decide to brand, whatever that branding path for you is based on where you are in your career or your dream driving journey. All these lessons are relatable and transferable to wherever you are along your own journey. So buckle up, let's go for a ride, and let's talk to Makini.
Thank you so much, Raina. It's great to be with you today.
It is so great. As we were talking before the interview, I've lived many lives, as we all have. And back in 2015, I was a writer for Madame Noir. And we actually, almost 8 years ago or 9 years ago to the day, we had a lunch interview. I don't even remember where it was. I don't know if it was the Brooklyn, Bronx. Like, it was somewhere.
It was in Manhattan. It was in Manhattan. Yes. I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was a really cute little restaurant. And we did meet up and we had a great time chatting. And at that time, talking about my floral and event design business.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. Like 9 years, right? So much has changed in 9 years. And it's just a testament to, like, you never know where you'll meet people again, right? And the ways in which you'll meet them. I never knew I would have a podcast. You probably didn't think that you would be the author of a children's book.
Absolutely not.
It's so much. But
yes.
Let's back up a little bit because I love to talk about the inspirations behind it all. And if you can go back to the young Makini, right? Like, what was inspiring you as a child? What were those big dreams for you back then?
I would say as a child, I was super creative. I come from a very musically inclined family. And so I was very much into the arts, singing, dancing, drawing, all those things. And In addition, I was an only child. So I was extremely imaginative, which you, I think, have to be when you have no siblings to play with. And so that creative, child, I think, was always searching for ways to express herself. And it is really no shock that I ended up, becoming an adult that really likes to make and create beautiful things.
I love that you say that because I know that you went to Columbia business for graduate school, right?
Yes, I did.
Um, and you went into the world of consulting, and you thought, well, let's talk about that. What did you think life after college? I'm putting that in quotes, right?
Yeah.
Like life after the educational accomplishments. What did you think that was going to be, and then what did you realize were your true desires?
Yeah. So I think at a certain point, which this is very common, especially if you're an immigrant family like I am from Trinidad, I, at a certain point, started to take on my parents' dream for me, which
Mm.
was like a lot of Caribbean families. Like there's certain careers that are, you know, really desired, and like financial stability and all of those things are really pushed. And so after college, my goal was simply to make as much money as possible. And there were things that I thought was sort of a definition of success. Where I worked, I had this cute little corner office on Park Avenue. And so I thought that was it. But shortly after that, I realized that number one, this wasn't the dream that I had for myself. This was my parents' dream for me. And also, I was missing that creative bug. Like, I really wanted to be making things, creating things. And it was very clear to me that I was in the wrong profession. And that was a great opportunity for me to then go and chase after my dreams.
Was it scary for you to make that pivot at that point in time? Because this
Yeah.
was 2011, right? When you
Yes.
decided to launch Makini Regal
Absolutely. It was really
Designs.
scary. First of all, I was a homeowner. And as you know, in New York City, that's very hard. And so I had to pay a mortgage. I was a single woman. I didn't really have anyone to rely on except for myself. And so there was this fear about, well, what if I cannot afford to live? Like, what if I'm making the wrong decision? But just like a lot of things that I do in life, I have like, I'm a risk taker, and I have a lot of faith in my abilities. And I know that I have a degree that I can fall back on. And so it was just a matter of taking that leap of faith and just having the confidence that I would be able to make it all work out.
Ooh, and it did work out, right?
It did.
It's funny I'm gonna use the word illustrious, right? That's a real word, guy. You had such an illustrious career at Makini Regal Designs, and just being able to really put your floral event and interior design skills into use, and the I think your clients probably the work speaks for itself. If you guys want to look, you probably can scroll back on your page and just see all
Yes.
the stuff that you did there. How do you think, or what do you think your experience running Makini Regal Designs taught
Mhm.
you about yourself, right? And I say yourself because I think that's a key thing to be a dream driver, is getting to know yourself. Like, what did that whole running the business teach you about your own ability to achieve?
Yeah. So I think that the first thing that it taught me was that there is so much power in having a dream and going after it. And so many of us, sometimes we have ideas, but getting those ideas out of our mind and actually like executing it, that is really hard. And I know that people do it every day, but it takes so much commitment to actually like pulling all of those ideas out of your head and formulating a plan and executing it successfully. And so I think really having like that mindset that you're going to go after your dream and figure out how to execute it to the best of your ability. And also, I think having that positive mindset is helpful when you come across challenges, which you will. And I certainly came across a ton of challenges. I knew nothing about the wedding industry, or, I don't have any formal training as a designer, but I was willing to navigate an entirely new industry and, being flexible and just sometimes having to go with the flow and sometimes faking it till you make it. Like there was so many things that I had to do to enter that new industry and to thrive in it. And then also having support. I have parents that are supportive. They have supported everything I've done. And so I've always sort of approached each business as a family business. I've always created opportunities to work with my family. And so that's been really helpful in terms of like grounding me and just kind of reminding me at times of my whys, especially when it's challenging.
That's so important. I think it's like you weren't even you were focusing on figuring it out, right? And being this problem solver, being this risk taker, and also betting on yourself, which I think a lot of us sometimes get nervous about, right? It's like, well, what happens if I fail? Did that ever go through your mind?
Yes, absolutely. Many, many times. I did think about it. Again, when you have a lot of financial responsibilities, which I did, there is a fear about what happens if I don't make it and what's the worst case scenario. In my case, it was, losing my home. And so I think that you absolutely have to consider all the, worst case scenarios and think of what will happen if I don't make it, but it should not be a deterrent to you actually moving forward and pushing. If anything, you can use that as fuel, which I did. And I think that despite the challenges, there were so many wonderful things that came of me starting Makini Regal Designs that there was really nowhere else for me to go but forward.
I love that. So let's talk about a major moment in your life. So you got married, right?
Yes.
You eventually had a daughter,
Mhm.
motherhood. And I say motherhood because I also, everyone on the show knows I have two kids. I have two sons, I should say. I have a
Mhm.
4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And when I tell you motherhood was like the biggest slap in the face for me, I had a baby during the pandemic also. So I had a 2020 baby. So that was another big thing. I think motherhood just reworks the way you see the world, right? The way you see
Absolutely.
yourself, the way it just reworks everything for good and for bad in some ways,
Yes.
right? So for you, how did motherhood really impact the way that you were showing up as an entrepreneur? And then I want to talk about the pivots that you decided you had to take. So let's talk motherhood first. What was
Yeah.
that like for you, that introduction into it?
So one of the things that I did as soon as I found out that I was pregnant was that I started therapy. Now I'm a person that loves therapy. I encourage people to see a therapist, but in preparation for what I knew would be a big transition in my life, I started seeing a therapist so that it would be more of a seamless process into motherhood. And I think that that was probably one of the best decisions that I made because, as you know, it is a big transition. And not only that, like I was essentially a newlywed when we got pregnant. So only a few months into marriage. Now we're expecting our first child. And so, a lot of change is happening. Like we're still trying to find our rhythm as a married couple. And now we're bringing a child into it. And I'm running a business and my husband's running a business. And so it was a lot. And I think that having someone with me throughout that process really allowed me to be a bit more strategic in my planning and ultimately led me to realize that as much as I love doing design work, that I needed to find a new career path. Because as you know, once you become a mother, like your time, you view time in such a
Time?
different.
What is time? Right?
It's like everyone tells you it happens so quickly. Your child will grow up and before you know it, but it's really hard to like understand that until you're in it. And so I just started to value my time in such a different way. And honestly, like I did not want to be away from my child at all.
And that's okay. I think that's something that can be a little taboo for mothers to admit. Like, I like being around my child. I want to be there when they're growing up. I want to, be active. That's
Yes,
okay.
exactly. And so I realized very early on into motherhood that I was going to make a decision that allowed me to be home with her. And so that's what I did. I transitioned from having a floral and event design business to being a stay at home mom. And in my stay at home mom journey is where I came up with the idea for a children's book.
Imagine a place where you can unwind and relax. IKEA can help turn your bedroom into a calm oasis. From comfy mattresses to the perfect lights, we've got everything to create your dream bedroom so you can sleep like a baby. And the best part, all at incredible prices. Head to IKEA and grab everything you need. Get ready to rest, dream, and wake up feeling refreshed. Shop today at your local store or at ikea-usa.com/sleep-es and get it delivered straight to your door with our convenient delivery services. So before we talk about that, I just want to say I think that it's so courageous to do that because a lot of women they have that and they don't always listen to that inner voice. So just you listening to it and having the support is just so inspiring. What did
Yeah.
it feel like, though, to hang up, I guess, or to close the door on that part of your life? You had done so much. Like, was it hard? Were you relieved? What was that feeling, if you
Yeah.
remember?
So I think it was a combination of all of the things. So it was absolutely hard in the sense that I had been building this business for, at that point, 7, 8 years. I was at what I think is the peak of my career. And so many wonderful opportunities were being presented to me that it was hard to walk away from. But I also recognize that you have to know your own capacity. And in the space that I was in, I didn't have it in me to be able to do all the things. There are some women or people who they try to do all the things and they have the capacity, they have the resources, they have the mental space to do it. That wasn't me. And so it was an easy decision in the sense that I was choosing my mental health. I was choosing the things that were most important to me, which at that time it was, bonding with my daughter, being there, not missing any milestones, like really leaning into motherhood and the way that really I'd always dreamed of. And I also knew that, part of the flexibility in being an entrepreneur is that at a certain point, if I chose to, I could always relaunch the business again. Like there would still be opportunities for me to use, my skill set to, you know, pivot. And so I gave myself the space and the freedom to lean into motherhood in a way that I think worked best for my family.
So let's talk about Zuri the Rose, right? The wonderful world of Zuri Rose and you deciding to build or launch a lifestyle blog and eventually a children's book series. It's so unique, right? I think it's such a unique idea. I think that sometimes when we think about the lifestyle space, especially as a Black woman, people want to push you into like the beauty bucket or the fashion bucket, right? But you saying, hey, I want to create a children's lifestyle brand is so unique. It's so niche. What was your thought about that? And then we can talk about some of the things, some of the challenges as you were building the brand.
Yeah. So I would say, really how the idea came about was I was that crazy new mom, like trying to decorate, my daughter's nursery and add all the books to it. And, at that time, I was really looking on Pinterest for inspiration for nurseries. And I just kept seeing the same books pop up. And I thought to myself, like, oh, these books are really cool, but what if I wrote a book? Like, what kind of book would I write? And it was just apparent to me that, hey, I would love for my daughter to learn about flowers. And so backtracking a bit, like when I was pregnant with Zuri, I was in the flower market, all the time. When she was born, I was taking her to events. So she's always been around flowers. Like I think I remember the very first time that she picked up a rose, she might have been 2 months. So it was very natural for me. Like I would love to be able to teach her about flowers one day. And so I bought every book on flowers that I could find. And although I came across some good ones, there was nothing that really stood out to me that was unique. And I also thought to myself, there are lots of children's books out there, but there are not a lot of books that highlight Black girls. Like there's Black characters that, are beautifully designed and there's, special details. And I started to like conceptualize what this could be. And it was really exciting because again, at that point I was home with Zuri. I had not been doing as much design work. And so it was really exciting for me to be in that space again where I was creating in my mind all the things that this little idea could be. And so I decided that I would launch with this book. And I also thought it was a good way for me to sort of transition from a floral designer. If I'm going to write a book, it kind of makes sense that it should be about flowers,
Totally.
you
Total
know?
sense.
And so, but as I started writing the book, all these other ideas came about. And as I started doing more research into, the children's space, children's products, again, there's so many gaps. It was very clear that there are products out there, but how many of those products are actually designed to highlight Black girls or to celebrate girlhood in the way that I knew that I could? And so the idea went from one book to an entire product line. And that is essentially how the Zuri Rose brand was born.
And being that you've launched businesses before, right? And you, even
Yes.
with your design business, you said you didn't have any of that formal experience. You knowing
Mhm.
that you didn't necessarily need to have all the answers, but you knew you could figure it out, right?
Yes, exactly. The vision, I think, is really the first step. And I have ideas, like I have a list of ideas that would surprise people. Like I can come up with great ideas, but I think that, once you get past, okay, this is the idea, then it's the execution part that I think becomes a challenge for a lot of people because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of resources to actually get it off the ground.
Ooh, so let's talk about some of those challenges because, it can be exciting in the beginning, right? You have this idea, you're pumped up, you get going, you have like your initial mock-ups, however it is in the book industry, right?
Yes.
What was some of the big challenges that you faced and how did you work through them? And I want to focus on the how because a lot of us get stuck when we see the challenge, but we don't realize there is a pathway through it.
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge for me was the funding, the initial funding. I have started multiple businesses over the last 10 or 11 years, but the Zuri Rose brand, this was the most expensive venture for us. And so I didn't really anticipate, what it would cost to actually get this off the ground in the way that I wanted to. And so that was absolutely a challenge, especially not securing any outside funding. This is 100% funded by us. We did at some point launch a Kickstarter campaign to cover the cost of our first print run, which was, of course, extremely helpful. But this is funded by us. And so I think the financial challenges that a lot of new businesses face, I would say was one of our biggest challenges.
So, question about the financial stuff. What goes in? Like what's the biggest cost driver if you're trying to get into this industry?
So I would say the illustrations, having the written part of the book is great, but you need someone to actually like help to visualize, all of the things that you're writing about. So having a good illustrator, and if you want a good illustrator, it's absolutely going to cost. And then also like the branding, which is the part that if you're familiar with the brand, it's where I have the most fun. It's where you can see some of my design background and how it shows up in the Zuri Rose brand. And so like all of the special details that goes into it, from the linen binding on the book to the gold foil on the gift boxes, like all of those details that create the Zuri Rose experience, it's very expensive.
And why were you so committed to those details? And I say that because, right, a lot of us sometimes are building brands, and I can be guilty of this. Is like you might say, all right, it's not that important right now. Or sometimes in like the entrepreneurship space, they'll say, focus on the things that really matter, right?
Yes.
And they might say, do you need that linen or do you need the gold
Hmm.
foil, right? But why were you so committed to making sure that the vision came to life as you saw it?
Yeah. So I think that when you think back to the brands that you connect with, at least for me, they're the brands that create a lasting memory for me, or the brands that make me feel like they care about making the experience special. And so that's what I wanted for, everyone that came up and touch with the Zuri Rose brand. I wanted them to feel special, especially a brand that is dedicated to celebrating children. Like it was an opportunity for me to put the extra effort in so that when you come across all of the products, whether it's the doll or the puzzle, you feel like a lot of love was put into it. And it's also the best form of marketing. One of the things that I'm so proud of is that I have so many repeat customers. When someone is thinking about a birthday or, a baby shower gift, they can immediately think, you know what, the Zuri Rose brand, they're going to deliver a great product. They're going to package it beautifully, and they're going to create an experience for the person that I'm gifting. So those kind of things, I think sometimes, people don't see the value in it, but for me, it is super important. It's part of the brand building phase where you really show people like this is what they can expect from you going forward.
Right. I think of like something my father used to say in his Jamaican accent, right? When you do it right the first time,
Yes,
right? It's
exactly.
it's like, make sure you're showing up as your best, because I also just think it's your reputation as well. You were not even from your events and all your design background, it would be absurd if you had started a new company and it was not on the same level,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Let's
Exactly.
talk a little bit about the marketing and just finding your customer base, because
Hmm.
launching something new, although you were in the events industry, although you probably had a strong consumer base, it still was kind of like a new customer in a way, right?
Of course.
What were some of the ways, or if you think back on those early days, even now, the marketing levers that you think you pulled that really worked, like the things that you saw that you were doing and you saw really good traction coming from it?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I did, especially when I launched my Kickstarter campaign, was I built a really strong launch team. And that essentially just involved me reaching out to as many moms as I could. I used social media for that. And I reached out and I pretty much asked people to support me in spreading the news on my book launch. And the day that I launched, it was so exciting to see the number of people posting about this book launch. And so I think, it's a lot of like grassroots sort of efforts and just reaching out to as many people as possible and tapping into your resources and your community and your network and really, expressing to people why they should be a part of this launch or what the benefit is or what is so unique about what you're offering in the market. And so that was one of the things that I did that really, I think, helped to spread the awareness about the brand.
And what about partnerships? And I say that because I know that you have some retail partners, right? And figuring out this unique industry, like the way that you were going to be able to grow your revenue in the events business is definitely different from the way that it works if you have a children's lifestyle brand. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did partnerships come to play? And maybe even so, how did you go about building them? Because a lot of us have these ideas like, hey, I want to work with this brand, or this will be
Mm-hmm.
the right thing, but we don't know where to start.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to, some of the details that I put into the brand early on, that ended up really helping to secure some of the brand partnerships that I had. So for example, with FAO Schwartz, I was able to secure a retail partnership with them simply by attending another author's launch event. And this is an author and a children's lifestyle brand owner who I really love her work and she's amazing. And so when I heard that she was going to be at FAO, I thought it was a great opportunity to not only go there and meet her, but I also took with me my products to show her and just get some feedback. And just the packaging alone is what led FAO's buyer to approach me in the store and say, "What is in that bag?" The same shopping bag that I remember my Trini dad, like, why are you buying shopping bags that have gold foil on it? That's unnecessary. But again, the more details that people can see and be drawn to, it at the very least gives them a chance to say, oh, what is that? To inquire about what you're selling. And that opened up so many opportunities for me.
It's funny because there's that saying, like, "Dress for the job that you want," right? Not the
Yes.
job that you have, and
Yes.
you were
Same
always
concept.
prepared. It's like, you could see, like, you could go into FAO Schwartz and just put your book, right? Put the book down and put the box down in store, and it would look like it belongs there.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
that's a huge one. Was there, I think it's interesting to also talk about failures because we don't always get it right all the time, right? Was there something that you realized like may not have worked? You thought it was going to work. You thought like this was it. And it turned out to, not do so well, or how you thought it didn't go as you expected.
Yeah, absolutely. So I immediately after launching the book came up with a whole list of product ideas and I did samples of all of the products and I even launched a small batch of those products. And some of the products that I thought would do well just did not. For example, a stationery set that I thought was so adorable and was done so well. I was certain that it would be one of the top sellers. And for some reason, no one was drawn to it.
Like,
And
who would
so,
use it, right? They're like, is my kid going to use this? They color on the walls. I know my kid, he colors on the walls, but he's also a boy.
exactly. So yeah, there's definitely, ideas that I have in my head that don't always translate as well as I thought it would.
But I think the lesson there is you have to test things. Like, you can't just
Yes.
assume. And like, sometimes you have to have those failures, because I'm pretty sure now, like, maybe you have more of like a testing process, or maybe there's something that you learn from that you can take forward with how you build the brand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So talking a little bit just about, I love, one of the things that I personally love about the Zuri Rose brand, and just even your own personal brand, is your dedication to the visuals and your dedication to the branding overall. What tips would you have for dream drivers who are trying to create a strong visual identity but are struggling?
Yeah. I would say the very first thing is to understand your audience and really tap into figuring out exactly who you're trying to attract. And I think once you do that, it's a little bit easier to come up with, some of the messaging and some of the visual elements that you need. And also just being consistent and having everything be as cohesive as possible. Every touch point of the business should be telling the same story. I use the same colors, the same fonts, I everything that you come across, whether it's, website copy, whether it's, media kits, everything tells a story and everything is cohesive. You can tell that it's coming from the same brand. And I think that, it's really helpful if you can do that prior to launching. But there are lots of situations where people already launch and now they're looking to kind of go back and figure out how to make it make sense. And that's totally possible as well. But the sooner that you can do that prior to launching, I think the better. It just helps you to kind of stay focused on what your goals are and you have a very clear direction.
How did you find your, I guess, branding or visual team, right? You're not doing this all alone. I'm assuming that you probably have a team. Was it like, did you get referrals? Was it through Fiverr? A lot of people are looking for like good branding resources as well.
So the thing about me is that I don't have like all of the technical knowledge, but again, I always have the vision. So because I have the vision, it's very easy for me to tap into, other places to get the actual vision executed. And so prior to even hiring any person at all, I could provide exact visuals of what I wanted. And I had, examples of things and very clear direction. And so once I did that, it was very helpful in getting support. And so I did have someone who helped with the product, the packaging design. And again, this was also very helpful for me to tap into some of my event design resources. And so I worked with someone who does a lot of children's events. And, even though she wasn't really used to doing product design, she understood all of the little elements that really help bring children's parties to life. And so I like using some of like, unique vendors in that sense, not the typical vendor. Like, yes, I could have gone to a product designer, but I want someone to understand the children's market in a unique way. And so, but yes, I have absolutely used Fiverr before. And again, you can use places like Fiverr, but you do have to make sure that you have a clear, some clear direction on what you want, because it could be a hit or miss.
I've used Fiverr, and listen, you have not seen anything that Fiverr has done for me, because it just didn't turn out right. This is not against Fiverr, they might be a sponsor of the show one day. I'm just saying, you got to really know like the person that you're working with. Exactly. This is, as we wind down, Makini, I would love to get your take on how you stay focused and how you stay confident. I say that only because I think social media, especially in 2024, like for me personally, as a podcaster, as someone who's been doing it a long time, you can go on social media and you can see somebody who launched, a podcast 3 days ago and they have all these views, they have all this traction, and you might say, why me? Like, why not me, right?
Mhm.
How do you make sure that you're staying focused on the Zuri Rose brand and what you know you're building and your vision in a world where it's so easy to get discouraged?
Yeah. I think for me, it's always kind of going back to my why. And I think it makes a difference in that this entire brand is inspired by my daughter. So there's a special sort of ammunition, I guess, like something that pushes me even more because I'm building this for her. This is a legacy brand. And so times where I feel like giving up or, when I feel discouraged, I just simply remind myself of why I'm doing this. And also, I have like a good team of people around me, like friends and family who are very, very supportive. And sometimes it takes them like hyping me up and reminding me of what all of the amazing visions that I have for this brand, or just simply reminding me of all the things that I've done in the 2 years that I've launched the business. So it's not all me. Sometimes it does require having other people around you to help kind of propel you forward when you feel like, what, am I making the right choices? Is this translating well? But it's always just working through the challenging parts of this whole process, and also like that mindset that I spoke about earlier. Having a positive mindset means that, even when things seem impossible, that you're going to find a way to get back to, that part of you that came up with this idea, and you have the most grand and amazing vision for it. And you know that it's possible, and you just have to hold on a little bit longer.
Ah, I love that. And I just think it's so real for so many of us, right? That holding on. It's like you
Hmm.
don't want to give up because you never know. I don't know if you ever seen that visual of like two people digging and one person decides to give up and not realizing like if they had just gone one more like dig, right? They would have
Yeah.
been at the diamond, and they're just walking away from like you really don't know what will be on the other side of not giving up, which is why you have to just keep going despite, it's all right to go in reverse. And if we use our dreams and drive analogies, right? It's all right to be in neutral sometimes. It's all right to be in reverse. You might even have to go into park, but just knowing
Yeah.
that the mission is to always get back to drive is so important.
Exactly. And I think also just looking at it, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And even for me, I'm someone who, I'm very ambitious and I like to get things done. But there are periods where you have to step back. I think for me, this has been a year of reflecting on what I've done, tightening up my strategy so that as I move forward into the new year, I feel more confident in the goals that I have. And so, you know, you just have to take your time.
And on that note, what's next? What's next for you, Makini? And what's also next for the Zuri Rose brand?
So next year, we will officially be launching book number 2, which I am so, so, so excited about. The first book, we love it. It's amazing. But the second book, I think, is really where you start to see the brand develop into, what I hope that it would be. So I'm really excited about that. There's also a line of new products that will be launching, including a new doll, puzzle, flashcards. So we're really excited about what's to come next year.
And what is it like for you seeing, you putting this dream into drive? And especially as a Black woman in this industry, I know that like there's probably not a lot of us in this industry, and just you
Mhm.
making your mark on the level at which you are executing is also so inspiring. So just talk to us about what it means to be a dream driver for you.
This has been an idea that I came up with so long ago. And I spent so many years just talking myself out of it. Like, oh, what do you know about publishing? Like, how can you just pivot from being a designer to now entering, publishing and then product design? And so I spent a lot of time doubting myself and really convincing myself that it wasn't a great idea. So to finally be at this point where, it's an actual thing. These are real products that are on, shelves in many stores, and it feels really fulfilling, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I also, constantly remind myself that this is what I've done, with I don't want to say a little bit of resources because it's been a big investment, but imagine what I will do when I have a team and when I have the proper financial resources to really grow this brand. And so I'm super proud and super excited about what's to come. And I'm also just enjoying the journey. This is the first business that I've ever run before where I can do it at a pace that works for me. Like motherhood, family, that's still number one. And so I am growing this business, but at a pace that does not affect, the things that matter most to me. And I think that's something that I'm extremely proud of.
And that's what I think is so inspiring as well. Like we all are in different seasons of our lives. And like you were in a season where it was fast paced, right? Where you were hitting the ground running in a different way, but now you're hitting the ground running in a way that works with what the life that you want for yourself, and also paying attention to your mental health and just overall wellness as well. So thank you so much, Makini, for sharing your dream driving journey. And make sure you tell our listeners where they can check out the Zuri Rose brand and get their products, get their books, and make sure they can support you if they want to.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. So you can find the Zuri Rose products at thewonderfulworldofzurirose.com or on Instagram at World of Zuri Rose.
All right. And I'll make sure to link to that in our show notes and when this episode goes live so that everyone can check out. Like, if anything, you're going to be wowed by the visuals. You just are going to feel, like fabulous. I even just going to your website. You feel like elevated when you're going through and just such a great job there. So it's so funny how things come full circle, but I'm just so happy that we're able to really connect again, both as mothers now. I'm the boy mom. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I wonder how it would be to have a girl, because my boys, they just beat me up all day long. But it's all right.
The boy moms are always on top of me, like, when are you going to launch something for boys? And I'm like, it's in the works. It's not happening.
But you know what, too? Like, you stick to the vision, right? And maybe there's, I don't know. Stick to what you know and what you want to do. Like, if that's not what you want, then like, you don't have to do it, right?
You're right.
All right, so that's a wrap for this episode of Dreams and Drive. I hope you enjoyed our guests' dream driving journey as well as listening to their keys to success. If you love this episode, you know what to do. Please make sure that you are following us. We are at Dreams and Drive across social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're sharing this episode, posting it to your Instagram stories, texting it to a friend, sharing on LinkedIn, wherever you are or online. Just pay this forward and share this with somebody. We really appreciate it. And all the sharing that you do helps us grow our community. If you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly updates delivered to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. And lastly, if you know somebody who would be great for this show, or if you are someone who would be great for this show, please go to dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I'm always accepting new guests. I'm always accepting new pitches. So I love to see those pitch requests coming in. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.